Hey everyone, Mrhappy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mrhappy, aka Mrhappy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. I have videos for the bottom this time. I did quite a few over the last week, although there was, again, I think Thursday and Friday, I didn't release anything, but Saturday, and then while I'm recording this right now, I have a video I'm going to render after I'm done recording this to release on Sunday, so I have quite a few videos to put at the bottom for once. So a few quick things before we get into the Q&A. I am doing my first ever official subathon for Twitch on Saturday at 7 a.m. PST. I've posted it in our Twitch app server, and I've sent it to all the subscribers on Twitch, but I'm going to do it here in the YouTube video for those of you who may watch YouTube but don't frequent the stream, or people who have never watched the stream before. Basically what a subathon is over on Twitch, it's where you do a marathon stream that starts at, a reasonable stream time, 5 or 6 hours, and then extends based on the number of people who subscribe to the stream. It's a fun little event, and it's something that can give some more time back to the stream. I also do giveaways, or I'm planning on doing giveaways for my subathon every hour, and there's going to be quite a variety of those as well. So basically, I'll start at 7 a.m. PST and end at 1 p.m. PST, but for every one new sub, add 10 minutes to the stream, and for every resub, add 5 minutes to the stream. So 6 subs for an hour, 12 subs for an hour, or any mix of the two in between. We're planning on playing Final Fantasy XIV, Elder Scrolls Online, and considering for today's Sub Sunday, I finally plugged in my 3DS and got to play Bravely Default. Honestly, that's looking like it'll probably be on the list as well, but I also have Horizon Zero Dawn, Zelda, and the Final Fantasy mobile games Grandmasters and Record Keeper, which are all potential candidates for being played on that day. For health reasons, I have mandatory breaks every hour for the subathon. I'm also going to be having mandatory eating breaks every 6 hours, so like at 1 p.m. PST, if, we've obviously gone past 1 hour, I take a break, I eat something, make sure I'm filled in my stomach. Every hour, get up, get some water, use the restroom, stretch my legs. I know it sounds stupid to need to make those mandatory to claim them as that, but trust me, when you're in marathon mode, which I've been in plenty of times before, it's easy to just blank out and focus just on the stream. So it's going to be a mandatory thing, and like I said, there's going to be giveaways every hour as well. So if you're someone who hasn't been by the stream, Saturday would be a good time to check it out for the first time, especially because Tuesday is going to be a crazy busy day as well. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of the following week, so Saturday is going to be a good time. Anyway, on that note, wanted to make sure that announcement was out there. There's more details on the Twitch app server. If you haven't joined already, try to make sure you do. I think I can include a link to that in the description of the YouTube video as well. And anyway, with that out of the way, let's get started with the actual Q&A. Not as many questions this week, so I should be able to get through even more of them. Oh, and by the way, yes, I know the green screen's not working, and I know you can kind of see the reflection in these. It's way too hot. SoCal's starting to get really hot right now, so using the box lights to make sure that the light is even for the green screen behind me. Honestly, it's up. I'm just not using it right now because it was way too fucking hot in here to do that. Anyway, the first question on the forums. Greetings, Mrhappy. Not first time posting, but Koopity the rules have a bonus of really good steak. Well, you just told me what my dinner is going to be tonight because I haven't had a steak in a good couple of weeks. I got 2 questions. One should be simple, yes or no. Okay, 1. So I've been leveling some other classes on the side. Noticed you get both eye level 50 and eye level 90 version of the artifact gear. Do you think they'll do this with the eye level 200 artifact gear? That's actually a good question. For level 60... yeah, when you complete the level 60 job quest, I wouldn't be surprised to see them do this exact same thing. Yes, I'm going to say yes. I think when you complete your level 60 job quest post Stormblood launch, yeah, you'll get the I-200 artifact gear. 2, what do you think they are going to do to make players like me, ones who are not looking forward to the story as it relates to Ala Mhigo in Stormblood, as the Ala Mhigan NPCs have not exactly left me with any sympathy for save 1 or 2 of them. Yeah, I don't blame you on that front. So really have no desire. Luckily, the other half of the story for you is Doma, and you might just care more about Doma than you do Ala Mhigo, so it just sounds like you might relate more with one nation over the other, and that's perfectly fine. Half the story will evoke more emotion out of you, and maybe the other half might get some once you get to know the Ala Mhigans a little bit better. All right, on to the next one. Good start. Good start. Hey, Happy. Hope all is good in the hood, my homie. And now we've gone downhill. Been a fan since the A Realm Reborn 101 days and an occasional supporter. Thank you. Sorry I don't sub on Twitch. You don't have to apologize for that. It's never mandatory. Try to hook you up with part of my Christmas bonus each year. I appreciate that, my man. Anywho, just a simple question. Pre-order Stormblood for PS4 and under my PSN account says the game will be playable during early access period. Now, the MOG station in my account doesn't have access to early access. I've heard a lot of people saying they are super concerned about that. From what I understand, if you digitally pre-ordered the game on PSN, even though your MOG Station account doesn't currently say you will have Stormblood Early Access, it says on PSN that you have access, and that should be the word that you take. I've heard plenty of people very concerned about that. So honestly, I would take to the official forums if there hasn't already been an official forum post, which I think there might have been, and ask them, hey, I saw this, but it's not showing on the MOG Station page. Is there anything extra I need to do? I think that's the safest bet. I don't think you should pre-order it again. When I pre-ordered Heavensward, I had the same issue, but that time I pre-ordered from EB and they told me there was no early access. I heard people saying that EB and GameStop told them there was no early access, and they were super wrong. I heard people complain about that. I mean, I've been subbed to this game. I love the content. Yeah. We enjoy your personality. Oh, snap. Almost forgot your bonus. This time, beta test Kingdom Hearts 3. Hopefully, I'll get to do that anyway. But yeah, I think you'll be fine, but you really should, if there hasn't been an answer for that officially on the forums already, you should probably just go to the official forums. It's a nice, easy post to not get deleted on the official forums, so you should be okay with that one. On to the next one. Hello there, Mr. Happy. I haven't cleared A12 Savage yet due to no static, so I'll use it as my excuse for a bonus. I don't even understand the logic there, but I'll take it. Your choice of one grade 6 materia when it eventually gets released into the game. Only one? What am I going to do with that? Like what, I could take a Vitality for progression, I could take Crit, Accuracy may not exist anymore. You know what? I'm investing in the future here. Parry 6. Now then, as a long-time player of various MMOs, I am no stranger to the concept of item level on gear and weapons. However, I noticed something when you play Neverwinter. When you attach an enhancement to a piece of gear, its item level actually raises to reflect the new stats. I was wondering, do you think they will ever take this route with materia? So I think it's not a bad idea, but I think there's something else you can do that's more important than increasing the item level to reflect the stat changes that you've gotten via materia. I think they could clear up a lot of confusion about the power of weapons and stats if they just told us, hey, like if you hover over a critical hit rate, it tells you how much critical hit rate you have. I get why they don't do it. They've answered why they don't just flat out have the percentage numbers in the game. They've explained it before. They're like, oh, you know, then people have more fun trying to figure it out. People also have no idea what their actual power increase is and how to measure it. They have to take guesstimates and test, you know, hundreds of times with like a third-party program to try and figure out what their actual percentage is and what the stat allegations actually are. Allegations, that's not the word, but whatever. And I think they could just avoid so many problems if they just put it in the game. All right? So they wouldn't even need to increase item level. Just, I want to know what kind of power. Also, the thing Yoshi P keeps saying about the animal weapon being the strongest weapon, and then when he says, you know, people look at the new higher item level and they go, wow, that's better, and they don't, and they're not. You either know something we don't, or you don't know how stats work. So if you put it in the game, we can more clearly say, hey, look, this is clearly better, dude. Like, come on. Allocation was the word I was looking for, by the way. So I think that's more important than making it increase the item level with materia. All right, on to the next one. Hi, Happy. A quick Palace of the Dead question or two. I could really use some help as I am not getting much traction as of yesterday. Got insulted. So here we go. Do I need to be more descriptive in my Palace of the Dead Party Finder message? Because right now, I get confused with 51 to 60 speedruns all the time, and it's really annoying. So I currently have fixed 51 till death, deep dungeon as message, and have normal comp in my queue. Seems like people think there's only one way to play Palace. If you don't do it, you get insulted, which leads to question 2. Okay, I'm going to read everything because I think I can answer this all at once. How do I deal with insults? I basically sabotage by looking for a group because I told them, as the party finder said, looking for a fixed party, and if they don't want that, they can leave because I want to do deep dungeon. Not do the same floor. I want to clear 200. I think you should not put 51 till death. Put looking for a party to progress past floor 100. You know, 101 to 200. Yes, you have to start on floor 51 for that, but when people see that you're starting on floor 51, they're just going to stop reading at that point because they're going, okay, 51 to 60. That's it. That's the first thing. So yes, you could absolutely clear up some confusion. Insulting somebody is silly over that, and that's just the internet, so you know how you deal with it. It's the internet. Just turn off the... Here's your cup, right? This is called your care cup. And what you want to do is make sure that as soon as people start insulting you, that the care cup is empty. You know, just remove the bottom, let all the contents out, and the care cup is empty. You just don't give a shit, all right? That's it, because it's the internet, and people are just, the anonymity of it is just going to lead people to act that way. So there you go. Just empty your care cup, or call it your don't give a fuck cup, and make sure that it's always empty, or it's always full, so you can always let people know that you don't give a fuck. So there you go. That's the last thing. Is fixed party design bad in its current state? No, because I would absolutely never want to do floor 101 to 200 with a random party. I would, however, like to have the option of starting from floor 101 with a fixed party, and fixed party only, as opposed to this whole don't die from 51 to 100 kind of thing that they do now. On to the next one. Hello, Mr. Happy. Been a long time since I asked a question, so have a bonus of any dessert if you guys know how to get to me. I'm patting my stomach right now, just can't see it. Anyways, I have a couple questions. What dessert would I take? You know, I'm a big fan of lava cakes. So I haven't had, oh dude, when was the last time I had a fucking lava cake? I need steak and lava cake. Not at the same time, but as a 2-course meal. Anyways, I have a couple questions regarding the Diadem. Great. According to 2.55, or I'm sorry, 3.55b, oh, don't worry, a lot of people have made that mistake. Trials of the Fury is meant for disciples of war and magic, and Trials of the Matron is meant for disciple of land. I know where this is coming. So why isn't Trials of the Fury are allowed to change to a Gatherer? So the Trial of the Fury and the Trial of the Matron, the Q there is strictly for the objective that you want to achieve when you get inside. Trials of the Fury has you complete 3 battle-based objectives, and Trials of the Matron has you complete 3 gathering-based objectives. As soon as those objectives are done, there is no more rule set. You could leave, change the gather, do whatever you want. And as a matter of fact, Trials of the Matron isn't even its own zone. It goes into the same zone as the people who are doing Trials of the Fury. That's why it requires you to have a minimum item level of at least 179 on your combat classes, because let's say if a boss spawned or the emergency mission spawned, they want to make sure you have some battle gear that you could participate in these missions were they to ever happen. So that is why they are not actually different zones, and once the objective ends, it's all up to the parties what's going to happen next. 2, I found that everyone at Diadem, once the objectives are completed, everyone wants to sit around and do nothing. That's called an AFK, wait for emergency mission, or boss fate party. Personally, I like to go and farm fates for more chances of 265 gear. Don't worry, you know that. Or extra spoils, whatever. However, these fates are not very easily soloed. Do you think that is an issue within the community, not wanting to do anything? So, when you're playing with random people, expect effort levels to always be at the absolute lowest, because they're not people with a like-minded goal. Everybody has a personal goal when you solo queue into the duty finder. Your goal, if you have one specific thing you want to accomplish, then you probably need to go to the party finder and make something so that you can make sure you're getting 8 people that all want to, hey, let's get a party of 8 together that want to actually farm fates after it's done, and, you know, do the emergency mission, do the boss fates, maybe try to spawn the emergency mission by killing things. Maybe we want to all gather, maybe we want to do Trials of the Fury for those rewards, but then we all want to gather afterwards. You know, you can do things like this to craft your own types of parties, you just have to make it clear what it is you want to do. But people just don't want to do things because the most rewarding activities are A, the boss fates, and B, the emergency mission. So they could just sit around and watch the new Iron Fist on Netflix instead of actually playing the game and only play the game when the emergency mission spawns. People are going to take that route just because it requires the smallest amount of effort possible. It's just a modern day thing with gamers. You know, a lot of people play their games like that because there's other shit they got to do. It's an unfortunate side effect that in MMOs it causes this sort of laziness or this sort of disagreements between what the actual objective should be, but it's a normal thing. So if you want something with a concentrated goal, go out of your way, make a party finder for it, and make sure that everyone's completely clear, and if somebody doesn't follow those rules after they join, you know not to bring them along again. That was a long-winded answer, so let's get this next question. These are ones I look forward to every week. Ahabs, guess my last music reference? Bites the Dust. Okay, I get the Bites the Dust reference. People explained to me what the music reference was from last week, so, you know, I'm caught up now. I'm afraid of becoming a broken record. So this is the roulette, by the way. Cross-roll system about Regula Van Hydra spoilers. I'm gonna go with I haven't taken your first question in a very long time, I think. I'm afraid of becoming a broken record. So you like the Wii and you like RPGs, and why didn't you play Xenoblade again? So I said I owned a Wii. I never said I liked the Wii. I admitted that it was a successful system, especially compared to the Wii U, which came out later, but I literally owned a Wii and Super Smash Bros., which was the only game I personally cared about on the Wii, and I pretty much stopped playing those like a month after I got it. So that is why I have not played Xenoblade. I own a Switch now, and that thing is not getting sold or put in the closet anytime soon. So when Xenoblade 2 comes out, or whatever they're calling it, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Xenoblade, I don't know, there's the Japanese art and there's the English art, and they both have different names. I'll play it on that, so we're good. I would like to rescind one of my previous answers as well, by the way. I was originally under the impression that Matron and Fury shared an instance. It appears that they do not. So, let's wrap that one back up in a bow and send it back, because that was an incorrect answer to an earlier question. That being said, most of what I said still rings true. Just not that one section about the minimum item level requirement thing, because they're in the same. That thing is still different. So, now that that's out of the way and that's corrected, let's move on into the next question. Hello, Mr. Happy. First time asking a question. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Having an okay one. No bonus, though, I noticed. So my day's a lot worse now. You just made it a whole lot worse. Now that Samurai will be coming into the game, do you believe there will be a similar event to the one like Lightning's event for Samurai? Oh, are you saying are they going to bring the Lightning event back for Samurai? Because otherwise, I don't know what you're asking. No Sephiroth event. All right, no. When Final Fantasy VII Remake comes out, yes, okay, we'll have that. No Sephiroth event. No, not having it. Zero. We got Sephiroth in our game, all right. His achievement name is Veni. No, we don't need that. Nope, not having it. Zero. But otherwise, I'm not really sure I understand the question, because if you are asking if they could bring the Lightning event back and then have a Samurai reward, wouldn't really make sense when they could just maybe add it to the station. I don't know. But I'm going to just go ahead and say no. On that note, on to the next one. Hello, Mr. Happy. In one of your videos, you cited an interview where they talked about raid achievements. I saw in another vid that they talked about how 1.x Total Rock, they track your progress and give you extra reward chests based on how you did during the dungeon, e.g. the number of doors open, speedrun, etc. So this is different than tracking achievements. So basically, you're talking about the speedrun methods, complete the instance in less than X amount of time. Okay, super easy to track because you have a timer that you can pull the information from. One of the other ones was number of doors opened. Yes, that one was possible. Generally, I think it was not the doors you opened. I think it was, by the way, it's not even Total Rock, by the way. Total Rock specifically, if you went through the dungeon correctly, you ended up at a different final boss that gave you more rewards. So it's not exactly the same way, because that one was just like more Labyrinth-esque. You just had to open the correct doors and take the correct path in order to get to the actual true boss, in order to get the true rewards. So keep that in mind, it's a little bit different. But the other thing that they did is, did you open all the chests? Again, a pretty easy thing to track because the chests are there and they generate data in the dungeon. So you can see if all the chests were open. Now that's one thing, but that's very different than tracking like in the middle of a boss fight. Did you do this mechanic a certain way? It's a very different way of tracking things. Some mechanics might have triggers that they can actually register, but then they need to create a back-end system that takes those and feeds them into the achievement system. So no matter what, there's some sort of middle ground that needs to be developed there before anything like that could actually exist. Now, could they add achievements right now that were something like open every chest in a dungeon, or what was the other one? Or how did you open all the doors? Did you pick up all of a certain thing? Like maybe like in Total Rock, the current one where you have all the fireflies. You don't need them all, but you could realistically go collect them all. You beat the dungeon in less than 50 minutes. Those things, they could absolutely track. But the big things when they're talking about raid achievements are not as simple as beat the boss in under 8 minutes or things like that. We're talking about fighting a boss with minimum item level or what's called. And keep in mind, you can track the people enter with minimum item level. I was going to go somewhere with that. I don't remember where I was going with that. I don't know. They don't have a system on the back end that reads that information and feeds it into the achievement. So they need to create the middleman, pretty much is what I was trying to say. And on to the next one. Hey, Haps, no bonus, but have a free trip to Doma before the Stormblood. That probably is pretty shitty because I'd be there all on my own, and I can't do anything all on my own. I need at least 7 other people there with me. I have 2 questions, but I'll try and keep them generally short. One is, someone who is heavily invested in healer roles, I was bummed when I found out we weren't getting a new healer, but I got over it because I knew tanks were in the same boat. Then I found tanks were getting new mounts. So DPS are getting new jobs, tanks are getting new mounts. What about my healers? I agree. Healer mounts have been something I've said they should probably do for a while, so I'll feel with you on that one. At least give the healers new mounts also. I mean, you've already given the tanks 1 set of mounts, and they're getting another set of mounts. So I feel with you. I feel with you on that. And some people be like, the unicorn. No. You are not going to tie up the level 30 unicorn quest and be like, no, yeah, healers get them out. No, that's not going to fly. And then 2, in regards to the new housing area, do you have any advice for newish players trying to get one? Find out when the servers are coming up, be up 2 hours earlier than that, and have all the money you need. Know exactly what location. Don't stand around and just be like, I wonder what house I should buy. No, 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 no. Get in there, get something, and get the hell out. Because otherwise, you're going to be like, I'm going to buy this. Oh, shit, somebody bought it. Oh, no. Oh, and it's going to be over. And it's gone. So that's the best that you're going to be able to do. And on to the next one. Hi. Hi. 1, do you think Diadem would work better as a level 61 optional dungeon? No. No. I don't. Although I do agree with you, the whole fate system would be a lot more, I think, not even acceptable, but the reward structure would work better if you could use it for leveling. So not a 61 optional dungeon, but the way it is now, if you were able to enter post-expansion and use those fates to progress a little bit as another means of maybe alleviating the queue problems, then yeah, I think that would be okay. 2, is there anything the developers or the community could do to inform mid-core players when Savage content is ready for them? I'm not sure I understand that. Are you saying that to let them know that they're good enough? Because obviously, Stone Sky Sea is not going to tell them they're good enough to beat the fight, but it's at least going to let them know that they've gotten their job ability rotations down at least well enough to destroy that. So I'm not really sure I understand what it is you're asking here, because there's very different ways this can be interpreted. And I think that I mean, you won't know unless you do it. You be like, hey, let's go do it. Oh, but they didn't tell us. No, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to practice. We're going to win. And honestly, I don't see much better way. On to the next one. Hi, Mr. Happy. First time asking Q&A. This is for your weekly Q&A. I am level 60 Black Mage Scholar and just have finished Heaven's Word. Well, welcome, and congratulations on finishing Heaven's Word. I don't know if you mean 3.0 or 3.5, but either or. Do you think I need to finish Dragon Song? So yeah, you're going to need to do 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, 3.4, 3.5 Part 1, and 3.5 Part 2 story quests. I have zero doubt in my mind you're going to need all those. They've said that it's a continuing story. You're going to need this shit, and eventually they're going to have maybe have that story jump potion at some point. But yes, you will absolutely. You don't just need Dragon Song. You're going to need all of the odd-numbered patches after 3.0, which answered my question from earlier, if you want to continue on. And then let's see. If you don't mind me asking you, one of my old free companies on Moogle left the game a long time ago and we missed her. I tried sending her a request to rejoin, so I'm asking you, can you say on the Q&A, Maid Ka Mini Dragon misses you a lot, please come back. Okay, Maid Ka, just so you know, Mini Dragon misses you a lot. P.S. Thank you for the coffee. Thank you for buying the coffee. Hopefully you enjoy it. Next one. Hi. Hi. Your question for this week is, with the latest re-release of the Diadem 2.0, which is for the most part been a slight improvement over 1.0, but still remains a failure. That's pretty harsh, but yeah, it's not great. Should SC focus manpower on improving their old content, like Gold Saucer, Maps, Big Fishing, Aquapolis, Palace of the Dead, or focus manpower on creating new content? So, don't let the Diadems re-release fool you into thinking that they are not working on those things. Aquapolis and Palace of the Dead released pretty late in the expansion's life cycle, 3.3, if I recall correctly. Yeah, the same patch as Nidhogg, I believe. Both of them were 3.3, with Palace of the Dead specifically being 3.35. And then they've updated the rewards from Aquapolis a couple of times and tweaked certain things about it. They did confirm recently that they are updating Aquapolis for 4.0. We already know that there is another deep dungeon. They decided on the location a long time ago after Palace of the Dead succeeded, and they are working on another deep dungeon like Palace of the Dead for 4.x. Gold Saucer, we get a few things here and there, but I think Gold Saucer is always doomed to obscurity or short bursts of popularity. Maps, they're always giving us new maps, and Aquapolis was really an update to the map system as a whole. We will absolutely get new maps, of course, going into the expansion. But I do think that improving their old content is something that manpower could be used on. You know, we're down to 2 dungeons, and it's great to get things like Palace of the Dead and Aquapolis. I don't know that they release frequently enough to warrant the fact that we still only get 2 dungeons in that expert roulette. I don't mind 2 dungeons a patch. Personally, I just think the expert roulette shouldn't just be 2 dungeons. Use the last 2 patches worth of dungeons, so 4 dungeons total, and all of a sudden the problem is much less obvious, I feel. But then on top of that, I mean, we still have only 4 raid bosses in a tier, and yes, we have 2 difficulties now, but let's be honest, one of those difficulties is laughable at best. You know, if anything, it's great entertainment for just duty finding and seeing how poorly it can potentially go and how good it can actually go. But Savage, those 4 bosses are really the big thing, and you know, at this point, could they have taken some resources, done a 5th boss, or maybe they could, I don't know. I actually am a big fan of the emergency mission, as shit as it usually goes. So content like that is always welcome as well. They don't develop any sort of other large-scale fates in the open world, things like Coral, Regina, Odin. Like, they just give us 2, and then they never do anything else with them. You know, I feel like they really want to bring a new experience, so much so to the point where it does cause the old content to make it feel like they could have done more with it, but they're doing less with it because they're trying to do this new stuff. And again, with 4.2, brand new type of content, will it be good? Will it be bad? I don't know. Diadem, Palace of the Dead, that's your scale of reference. Lords of Verminion and Palace of the Dead are your scales of reference for what could be good and what could be bad. So, yeah, I think they could definitely do with giving old content more love and updating the gameplay aspects of them, as opposed to just creating new content and saying, well, we kicked back on this a little bit to work on this newer stuff. All right, on to the next one. We're only halfway through the questions already, by the way. Good. Yar haps. Yar. My first time askers have an additional hour that can be added anywhere and doesn't respect any laws of physics. Dude, can I get you to ask a fucking first question every week? Can I use that hour for you to just ask me another first question? Because holy shit, could I use that right now. So you have, here's a few short ones. So Final Fantasy XIV Miscellaneous, spoilers for Haydn. With the expanded map, we were expected to cross a few oceans to get to Authored, passing by different landmarks. Couldn't we just sail west? So we can't just sail west. So basically what you're asking us to do is the equivalent of what Christopher Columbus did. So to the west of Eorzea and to the east of Hingashi, the island of Hingashi, is a place known as the New World, a place that's still not present on the world map. It's the place where the Mamoja come from, which is why some people have suggested it may actually be Vana'diel from Final Fantasy XI. It isn't, but people have suggested that it could be. And we've very rarely heard things about the New World and what actually comes from it. So it would be the equivalent of us like sailing west, be like, we're in Hingashi, and then we're like, you are all from Hingashi, you are Hingashians, and they're like, nah, dude, this is not Hingashi. Like, you're in a completely different place. So you I think you went the wrong way. I think you need to, you can go around, but I think it might be shorter for you. Like, look at our map. How come our map is complete and your map is shit? You know the world is round, right? It's not flat. So, yeah, you guys went the wrong. Just turn around. Just Authored's the other way. Hingashi's the other way. So you're good. All right. We'll be here though if you want to come back. You know, just don't be an asshole like Garlemald and start taking shit over, because they're like Europe and they're gonna fucking destroy everything. So yeah, that's why I can't do that. Is there anything in single player RPGs you'd like to see implemented in 14? Not really, because MMO single player doesn't work really well when you try to mix the two all that much. And let's talk dungeons. Oh god, we should see Weather Moonphase playing a part in any new dungeons. I'd like to see Weather play more of a part. Period. Weather isn't really cause and effect. Weather is a way of letting you know that an effect has occurred, like a boss fate or something like that. But I'd like to see, like, if you go into a dungeon and it's raining, like, I don't know, maybe if it's like plant-like enemies, they're a little stronger than they usually are, or, you know, if it's really hot out, maybe they're a little weaker because, you know, they're drying out or something. I don't know, things like that. I'm always open to things like that because those make the world feel more connected. You know, the weather doesn't feel like a different system when you do things like that. Obviously, it affects things, you know, it affects other things, but I want it to affect more things than just that, especially when we're talking about dungeons in particular as a piece of content and weather affecting that. Would you be opposed to unconventional weaponry on terrain usage in dungeons? Dropping boulders on the boss. No, see, you can just implement that as a boss mechanic. So no, I have absolutely no problems with that. And if you screw it up, you screw it up. You know, you got to fight the boss normally. No, I'm always okay with things like that. Being able to take advantage of terrain, but it's usually designed that way on purpose. You know, it's not usually just something that's there and you won't know about it. And it's like, well, you know, this happens to be here. That'll become like a standard strategy thing. So it's not even really that special, though, if you ask me. And do you have other questions here? But I'm going to limit it at that because even though I have less questions, I still want to have time for some Twitch questions too. So that's going to be the last one I take from you in particular. But good questions. All right, on to the next one. How you doing, Mr. Haps? I'm doing all right. How you doing? Hopefully you're doing all right too. First time askers have a bonus of 10,000 sacks of rice? What? Is it at least pre-cooked? Because otherwise you're just giving me a truckload of work to do. My question is, does Eorzea and the Alliance have an answer to the large combat Garlean airships? Magic. It sounds like a shitty answer, but like they have to harness magic through Magitech. So us having natural magic is the only thing. Unless we want to summon some primals of our own, though, we probably don't have a great answer to most of that. Or Midgard Summer decides he wants to grow up into a big daddy again. We know they have a wide variety of airships above and out of the range unconventional. Unless the Ocean Alliance builds up our own air force. Well, I mean, we have a navy. At the very least. And besides Sid, dude, Sid can build some crazy shit. He might only be one guy plus two with Biggs and Wedge, but that dude can build some crazy shit. So I believe in Sid Garland. That's Sid Garland 2020. Alright, on to the next one. Salute. Salute. Instead of trying old dungeons and content to get relic weapons to get players to continue to run, how do you feel about them adding achievements for doing X number of said Never Reap? Please don't use Never Reap as an example in an achievement ever again, because I will never do it. Any other dungeon guarantee minion or a piece of glamour? I don't think your question really matches. Like, the first half of your question doesn't match the second half of your question. I get what you're saying. You're saying, like, give us achievements for the old dungeons as opposed to using the relic weapon to get played. So let me just clear this first. First of all, the relic weapon will not be that way in the expansion. We will have Eureka, the Forbidden Land, for working on our new relic weapon equivalent. So he seems to, I mean, it seems to be the idea that Wondrous Tales is enough. I share your sentiment, apparently, that Wondrous Tales is not enough to incentivize old content, but the roulettes have done a good enough job for me of incentivizing old content. Coil, people still go back to for glamour occasionally. Wondrous Tales does do a good job of getting some people to do that again, but I don't feel like we need this constant, crazy incentivization of old content. I think the 24-mans are the one thing that need to be revamped, and I really feel like a 24-man roulette would do a sufficient job of that, and yet he seems uninterested in. He doesn't. It's not even like they're just ignoring it. He straight up said, "Nah, I don't think we need it. I don't think we need it. I think Wondrous Tales is enough." No, you need a 24-man raid roulette, dude. Like, that's not a joke, man. Because I can tell you right now, if Dunscape ends up in my Wondrous Tales, that's just one I'm never doing, because I could just do 4 dungeons and then 5 primals, and I'm good, and I don't need to do anything anymore. So you're crazy if you think that that's going to be enough, because it's not. So yeah, we could definitely incentivize our old stuff with that, but I don't think we need to do it that crazily. Unless you want to do minimum item level stuff more. I think that's still a great way to incentivize really old stuff. On to the next one. Greetings, Mr. Haps. I hope your day is going swell. It is going swell. I am admittedly not a bard player myself, but I got to wondering, thinking emoji. Now that we have gear that we can meld, does it make sense for bards to meld piety instead of skill speed? So I would normally, some people laugh at this question. This has been a question for a very long time, even back in the I-90 days, if it was worth melding piety to keep the songs playing longer. Just so that you know, the answer is no. The answer is just no. It's not. It doesn't buy you enough of anything to ever be worth it, especially considering skill speed is something you will make use of every 2.5 or less seconds, whereas piety will never let you play foes forever and ever and ever. I think there was a point in Realm Reborn where somebody said if you had like so much piety it wasn't even possible that maybe you could play foes indefinitely, but it was a number that was so ridiculously out of the realm of possibility that it was absolutely not worth doing that. And it has only gotten harder to achieve that with the way stats work now compared to back in a Realm Reborn. So I'm going to go ahead and just say no on this one. On to the next one. I see it's your first question. Okay, you do have a bonus. Good. I was going to be really disappointed if you didn't. Hey, Mr. Happy, a long-time viewer, first time asking a question. Have a bonus of daily pineapple juice and solid bread. You know what? That sounds like a shitty thing because I can afford pineapple juice and bread. But if I don't have to buy pineapple juice and bread, then I can just buy orange juice and bagels. Like, this is a godsend. That's twice, it's like twice the juice and twice the bread. So, it's 10 out of 10. I have one question. There's a lot of text for this one question, let me tell you. I have a really serious issue about using a keyboard to play the game. As a console gamer, I don't really play on PC. 14 is my first. Okay, let me just say, I don't even have to read the rest. If you are not having a good time with the keyboard, use the controller. But let me finish. If that answers the question, then that's my answer. Just use the controller. I know plenty of PC players that plug in a controller and say, fuck the keyboard. So that's totally okay. A lot of my friends have recommended playing with the keyboard is much faster and more efficient for raiding. I was world 6th with a warrior who is in the top percentile of FF logs using a controller. The only caveat is in order to use push to talk, he had to buy a pedal, like, you know, for like racing games. He bought the pedal just for the push to talk button, which, by the way, super effective. What's it called? I've tried hard to practice using some keys in my opener's rotation, but in a high tense environment outside, which rates, I find myself defaulting into clicking. In that case, The most case I can handle a keyboard was at 3 to 4 key on top of clicking the rest. In the event that I'm practicing on training dummy with my keyboard, I can find myself glancing down at my keys very often. First of all, this sounds like a common problem when you're unpracticed in something, so practice makes perfect. I don't think you need to change though. Like, I know plenty of raiders that use controllers, endgame raiders, like in Elysium, or people that have played in Elysium. I don't know like what the recruitment's like right now, but I know plenty of people who play on PC with controllers and they fucking beat the raids no problem. So the only job I don't like controller for is healer, but I've even seen great controller healers, so I can't say anything. You're fine with a controller. You don't need to learn keyboard, but if you'd like to, just keep practicing. You'll get better eventually. On to the next one. Hello, Mr. Happy. I hope you had a great time at PAX. I'm alive. That's the most important thing. I'm not dead, because Boston was a shitty city when it was around the convention center. Also, I seem to be one of the very few people who did not get sick. As a bonus, I have some grade 5 materia. Dude, I'm swimming in grade 5 materia thanks to the Diadem, but I'll take more. Here are my questions. First one might be a little long. It doesn't look too long. Let's find out. I have half a static, and we tried to complement a bit with the Party Finder. One of the main issues I've found in the Party Finder is that many players overestimate its current level of proficiency in the phases of a fight and goes into groups in the hopes that by luck they either learn or the group is strong enough to carry them. This is normal. My question is, how do you see Party Finder versus static? So I've seen plenty of successful Party Finders. I've seen unsuccessful Party Finders as well. What you pretty much end up doing is sifting through the people who are bullshitters, and you just blacklist them, and then you only end up Party Findering with the people that actually did well. It's going to be great when we get a cross-server friends list, so you can, instead of just, you know, getting rid of the people you don't like, you can also add the people that you do like. It'll be even easier once we have things like cross-server free companies, cross-server link shells. All of that's going to be made better, but yeah, I mean, that's what happens. It's what you've said has been happening since day one of the Party Finder. It's no different then than it was now. The only difference is now you can do a cross-server, so if no one on your server trusts you, you just go join someone from another server and hope that they trust you. 2, how do you deal with playing for a long time? How often do you take a break, and do you think something like stretching or any kind of exercises? So I used to do those more frequently. In recent days, I've kind of just like, because I've been getting high anxiety outside of stream and outside of YouTube videos, what I end up doing is I kind of just bury myself in my work, and that's how I get rid of my anxiety. Now, I'll get up and I'll walk around and I'll stretch, but you heard earlier that for the marathon specifically, I'm making it mandatory. And that's because when I get really into something, I just forget. That's just the bottom line. It's an irresponsible thing. It's not a healthy thing. But what's it called? I've just never had a problem with it since I was a kid. You know, I've always been someone who could just do it for 12, 14, 16 hours straight and never outside of the need to eat, drink, or use the restroom move. You know, and that was even when I was in shape, like when I played DDR for 7 fucking years and I was in the best shape of my life. You know, even then, I still had no problem if it wasn't a DDR day for me to just fucking sit down for 16 hours straight. I just conditioned myself over all these years to be perfectly okay with it. So it's honestly just the way that I kind of raised myself in terms of being a gamer, and it's by no means a good thing. So it's better to get up and stretch or walk around or do any sort of physical activity, which is why I actually like doing the morning stream and the evening stream, because I always run chores between the 2 streams. I'm out and I'm moving, and it's better for me. So that's one thing that I really liked, is getting my chores done then, as opposed to doing it all at the end of the day and getting some breaks in between. All right, I see who's asking this question. All right, next one. What is your favorite meal that isn't basic Miss Kupo status? Oh, steak or sushi. Do you know something that takes time to prepare, not like throw on a grill or have someone else roll for you? I don't know, I had a better question, but I forgot it. I need to start writing my questions in Notepad like I used to. Okay, so what are my favorite meals that aren't something as simple as that? So, homemade potato gnocchi with a homemade meat sauce would be probably the go-to thing that is like not a steak or sushi. That would be a go. I love gnocchi as like a dish. It's just, I don't know what it is. It's just gnocchi it's my go. If I had to pick something that wasn't that, it would absolutely be a homemade gnocchi, you know, or a freshly prepared gnocchi. Just not a frozen gnocchi, because it's frozen. I can do because I'm used to eating frozen foods. I was raised on that, but specific if I'm gonna go pasta route, then like ziti ends up being a big one. Like the Italian in me does that. But growing up, gnocchi wasn't really something I ever had, but the first time I had it, it was like an instant favorite for me. What's it called? It's just, I need it. Now I want it. For now, we've got steak, fucking, what was the other thing? The lava cake, and now gnocchi, you know, because fuck the G. But anyway, yeah, that's what I'm gonna go. Bolognese. Oh, just move on. I gotta move on. Next question. Last question reminded me of Gnasty Gnork from fucking Spyro because of the G. Anyway, next question. Speaking of G, this person's name begins with G. Hey, Mr. Happy, I hope you had a great week. I have 2 questions for you this week. 1, what are your thoughts on them adding random treasure chests around the open world, especially in A Realm Reborn, to incentivize players? So, the possible problem I see with this is to devalue content such as Deep Dungeon. I think the bigger problem is making me even give a shit that those treasure chests are out there. Like, what are you going to put in them? You might put, like, level appropriate gear, maybe? Like, ethereal gear? But I'll just trade that for seals. Like, maybe a new player would like that. But then maybe new players start getting their friends to, like, bring them into, like, a level 50 zone and get the treasure chests there so they have gear for later. I don't know. I don't know that there's really... I don't know how you're going to incentivize that without... I just don't know how you're going to properly incentivize that. Like, the rewards need to be worth me finding it out in the open world. Like, is it going to have 10,000 gil in it or something? You know, that's, to me, that's the bigger problem. You're saying a minion or, you know, or materia or things like that, or crafting supplies. But, like, it needs to be enough to make me care that I found the treasure chest and not just go get the supplies myself. Or the minion needs to be exclusive to this. And then everyone's doing it when it first comes out. And it's not even, like, content. It's just, I'm going to run around until I find a treasure chest. You know, it's a nice little thing to find. I just don't know that you could incentivize it in such a way that isn't just max level players shitting on the rest of the world trying to get this exclusive minion versus, you know, something a new player could enjoy. Because I can tell you right now, I am not interested in going back to old zones just looking for treasure chests. That's just, I'd rather just do maps, to be honest. 2, while in PAX, did you see or hear anything that as gamers that were not at PAX would find interesting? I made a video about a game called Battle Chasers Night War. Watch that. And Dauntless, I still have a video to make about that with my thoughts. It was fun, but I do have some honest opinions about it, including the pace of the gameplay itself. But I also had to play a pre-made character with very few abilities, so it could definitely change at some point. Either way, thank you for your questions. I think we have a couple more, so let's get to those. Next one. Hello, Mr. Happy. This is Finalism, and welcome to my question on your channel. 1, what year do you think they will release the next MMORPG Final Fantasy? Honestly, I don't know that they will. Like, we have the mobile MMOs of Final Fantasy XI and the mobile MMO for Final Fantasy 15 that's coming out. Those are probably the future of MMOs for Square Enix, are the mobile games, because I don't see them making like a Blade and Soul type Final Fantasy MMO. The thing is, it would be a minimum of another, like, 6 years. And by then, honestly, I don't know where the MMO genre is going to even be in... will it even be in a good enough state to make another MMO? Questionable. I think they're better off supporting 14 for as long as they can and then seeing how the mobile MMO market does, which I think they'll make more money in, personally, before they even consider doing one of the other things. And 2, why is World of Warcraft generally considered a better MMO than Final Fantasy XIV? So, the amount of money that is poured into that game is a big thing. The amount of developers that work on it, and of course, like Final Fantasy, Warcraft was a long-standing franchise before World of Warcraft. Warcraft 1, 2, and 3 and their expansions garnished a shit ton of fans over the years. You know, the basis of a lot of design was off those games, whereas World of Warcraft had to borrow MMO elements from other things like RuneScape and other MMOs that were out before it. It just took everything together. Blizzard had enough support, they had enough money, they were generating enough revenue to just constantly provide insane amounts of things that were always vastly different. And right now, World of Warcraft is doing something it's never done before. It's releasing content at a very, very good pace. It's a question of whether or not they'll keep it up before the next expansion or fall into another 14-month lull, which is my #1 criticism about World of Warcraft, is their inconsistencies at the end of expansions. But it's just everything, every time they release a new expansion, it's fresh. You know, there's new bosses, new raids, and obviously that sounds a lot like what we do, but the way they do it is better. The way they design their raids as one cohesive unit is better. The one thing World of Warcraft doesn't do that's in some way better is probably the graphics and the support across a console. Like, having Final Fantasy XIV on the PlayStation 4 is a great thing for Final Fantasy and is a large attributing factor to its success as a whole. If that never happened, we'd probably be sitting at closer to 200, 250,000 active than the 400 to 500 we generally sit at otherwise. You know, I honestly believe the PlayStation 4 is just a huge boon to the sales for Final Fantasy XIV, otherwise it probably would have fell to somewhat of an obscurity. That being said, Final Fantasy XIV absolutely has a high quality of content, especially if you're more into story attributed things. If you're a bigger Final Fantasy fan in general, you'll generally get that feel of nostalgia like World of Warcraft fans get whenever Illidan pops his fucking face back up. Things like that. But that being said, they have their pros and cons. I just think World of Warcraft has way more money, way more developers, and way more everything behind it to give the players they want more and things that are more varied, at least when it comes to character progression, which is another thing they do way better than Final Fantasy XIV with our shitty 35 bonus points. Meanwhile, they get a fucking weapon that has all these crazy effects on it that you'll unlock. As annoying as that grind can be, it's still vastly different from the character progression that we get. So there's a lot of things. I will never doubt that World of Warcraft has done a lot of things right in their design, but the few things that they do wrong are things that kind of keep me away from that game as a whole, and I did play it for somewhere around 3 years, so keep that in mind as well. And I think that, this is the last question that's on the forums, and then I believe I have some time for a couple of Twitch questions. Yeah, I should have a couple of minutes. Hello, Mr. Happy. Let's just jump right into the question. Okay, thanks. I like the way this man thinks. White mages are one time generally seen as having the best healing throughput, and that was how White Mage felt powerful. Currently, there's a school of thought that any advantage that they had was minimalized once Astro got their healing buffs. Given that 3.0's Astro healing potency was seen as too weak, and scholars gotten tools like Indom, is it good for the game to have one healing class that's able to pump out bigger heals as its defining trait? It would be, in theory, if the fights could demand it more. And unfortunately, the fights do not demand enough healing to warrant having that as your potent, that as your one potent ability, your one thing that makes you stand out. They just don't demand enough of you to warrant that. Even if they did, Astro's healing is pretty much on par with White Mage's. Yes, Cure 3 is amazing for stacked AoE heals. Yes, Benediction is great. But Astro is not enough. It's not enough of a difference between a White Mage and an Astro to really warrant going, yeah. White Mage is very satisfying to play, but they need something else to be their defining trait, not just big dick heals. There needs to be something else, or the game needs to demand more healing, and White Mage needs to stand above Astro's potencies as a whole in order, and then maybe White Mage is just the only meta, and Astro goes back to being too weak. You end up, when you have 8 spots in your raid group, and you're going to have a total of 15 jobs in the expansion, people are going to get fucked if they're talking about min-maxing. That's just natural. I like how, because of the lighting, my hands are basically 2 different colors, by the way. It looks really fucking weird. It's just going to happen. You can't avoid it. So, and no, the solution is not to make content 16 players by default. That is not in any way a better solution, because still, if a job stands out better than another one, it's still going to be more meta than the other ones. But people may care less. But honestly, if you're not min-maxing now, most people really don't give a shit. It's just the loudest people give a shit. You know what I mean? So, I do think White Mage needs some love. I just think Astro got too much love, in all honesty. Okay, so that's the last question that is on the forums. So I'm going to take a few from the Twitch chat, and then we'll wrap up for this week. So, Twitch chat, best of luck. Alright, so the first question I have from the Twitch chat, Mr. Happy, do you think they should force the idealism of a caster role of 4.0? Hello, Aloha. He's probably, yep, he's going to start meowing. Do you think they should force the idealism of a caster role in 4.0, meaning that you should have at least one, to prevent things like 3 melee composition? So I'm never a fan of forcing idealism. I mean, even looking to things like MOBAs, where League of Legends has pretty much forced the top jungler, mid, dual bottom meta. I never like a forced meta. So forcing caster into the meta to me is not really a solution. I think it's making it so there's a reasonable amount of synergy across different compositions, so that it's not just how many stacking debuffs can you bring. This one debuff. I mean, you look at it. Bard affects casters with foes. Not a permanent thing, but it is a thing that they have. But that's nothing compared to the permanent, pretty much piercing debuff that you'll get from a Dragoon, or the permanent slashing debuff you'll get from a Warrior or Ninja, for the constant uptime on the damage increase, that constant and never-ending synergy, barring, of course, a boss jumping and needing a few seconds to get it back up. It's not a resource-intensive thing, it's just a natural thing. And that's what I feel is needed, is more natural identifiers between jobs in which they are just, without even needing to think about it, bringing this sort of utility. That way you could be, hey, I want to do Bard triple caster because I have the magic debuff here, and then I have, oh well, you know, we have a dragoon, so we are more inclined to bring things like machinist and bard. The problem is that no matter what you do, mathematically something is always going to stand out. It doesn't matter unless you have a fight where literally things are immune to physical damage and you need one caster there, but then you have no freedom. You need the one caster, and that's a problem as well, and I'm sure if that happened it would bring up problems. It's balance. It's all about balance. It's something that's going to constantly change. It's something that's going to constantly be, you know, complained about. And there's always going to be this rotating meta that has some jobs that just never move from it, and then other jobs that move in and out. It's just natural for an online game where people talk about optimization to have those sorts of scenarios. I think they could go about better incentivizing people to, you know, mess around a little bit, you know, give a little bit more consistency so that you can bring these different compositions and you do get somewhat similar utilities without creating homogenization, which again is gonna be damn near impossible. So I don't think that forcing the idealism of caster is a good idea, but I also think that the current way people handle it, where we have to have bard machinist as part of that optimal comp, that meta comp, is also not an acceptable thing. So gonna be interesting to see how it plays out. All right, the next question from the Twitch chat. Mr. Happy, going back to WoW, like you were talking about before, what mechanics or designs do you think 14 could benefit from adapting, especially with people's complaints of how streamlined things are, like stat progression? Okay, here's my number one from World of Warcraft. Something that honestly, I shouldn't even have to just point to World of Warcraft for. I could point to most MMOs on the market, and you will see this kind of design. A raid that is connected. I know it seems like it's not really a gameplay thing, but trust me, when you're in a raid and the entire thing feels connected and you can see the ins and outs and the way that this sort of building or area is designed, and it doesn't feel disconnected, it is just a better experience, I feel. It also gives you more motivation to fill that space with content, with things like Faust. You know, they could do trash, useful trash inside raids, and I know that sounds dumb because the terms useful and trash never go together, but you can incorporate things like rare recipes that the raiders can provide to the crafters, who can provide back to the community, that require these expensive things. You can create more intricate systems like that aren't just this linear system of tomestones and then raid gear, and then wait till the odd numbered patches if you couldn't do those two things. People who are better at making money can get a sense of progression that isn't just in their crafting and gathering. You know, there are things that you can do by creating one consistent raid that is from beginning to end going to give you an experience. That's the thing. It also gives you an experience, an actual sense of diving deeper and getting into the heart of whatever it is that you're trying to move towards. I think that is a big thing that WoW does, that when I see that I go, I really wish we just had that. I wish it wasn't broken up into these 4 separate bosses and it's just completely instanced away from each other. You could tell me I'm anywhere in Alexander and I'll believe you. I have no reason to disagree with you. You made it. But I would like to see myself diving deeper into Alexander, giggity, and just get the experience of an actual adventure. That is how I feel, at the very least. All right, I'm going to take a more broadcaster career choice type question on this next one. With the introduction of new games and new gaming systems, how do you as a broadcaster determine whether a game is going to do well on your channel? In turn, how much does your personal want to play the game come into consideration to the equation? So this changes with every different broadcaster. There's no one answer that is correct to this. So I'm speaking on my behalf only. So there are statistics that you can look at. You can look at the demographic of the people that watch you, and then you can compare that with demographics of people who generally enjoy certain different topics or different types of games. For example, if you look at the demographic of your viewer base and it's between the age of 14 and 18, then that actually has a high correlation with the viewer base of first-person shooter games. So you could kind of determine that you could pretty much play any first-person shooter, and that age group would probably be more interested in your content. If you start looking at 18 to 24, you have people who grew up with some of the older games, but they were still kind of young. So you kind of look to go to maybe a more action-adventure or an RPG type game. And then after 24, it really starts to, then at that point, it's up in the air because you don't know what people got interested in certain age brackets, and it comes a little bit down more to personal preference. 24 to 30 generally has a more nostalgic feel, so maybe playing NES games or SNES games becomes a little bit more within your wheelhouse, or Sega games, or older games in general. And then again, as you get older and older than that, it can still apply to that. But then it just becomes a matter of personal preference of the games you like to play, mixed in with kind of what your age demographic matches with. And that's obviously not the only thing you look at. Sometimes you're just more entertaining playing a certain type of game. Maybe for me, for example, when I'm explaining things to people, that seems to be where my demographic lies specifically in terms of content. You know, telling people, how do you find this, and where do you unlock that, and you know, what's the strategy for this? That's the demographic I've created for my channel, and that's aspect number 3. What demographic did you get into with your channel in the first place? If you haven't found that niche yet, you need to find it ASAP, because that's going to determine how you go forward choosing games. With me, the toughest thing is I play RPGs. When a new RPG comes out, what is the last thing people want to do? Spoil themselves watching somebody else play it. So what's the best thing for me to do? Play it to anyone who will watch, and then provide guides to the people who are actively playing the game and don't know what to do at certain parts or how to unlock certain things. Because the RPG viewer base is very notorious for not trying to figure everything out on their own. They will figure out, you know, the basis and then go back and look for the secrets after they've beaten it, and there's very little sort of desire to do it completely blind, to figure everything else out blind. So you start looking at all these different aspects and things like that, and just try to put them together into a product that matches you. In the end, it does have to match your interests. You can't just play a game you hate because everybody wants to watch it. As for how your decision to play games personally, games that you personally want to play that may not match, you generally want to create time frames that are separated from when you create your normal content, and then produce that content then. Maybe it means streaming an extra few hours a week. Maybe it means working on a video for it an extra few hours a week. But you add those hours on because it's something you want to do, not because it's something you feel like you need to do. So it's a very complicated question, but those are my feelings, at least, towards it, and the way that you can approach choosing what content goes where. And unfortunately, sometimes personal want falls a little bit to the wayside in terms of what's smart to do, because, let's be honest, if you've watched even just one episode of Kitchen Nightmares, you'd see that people want to do shit all the time that doesn't make any fucking sense, and is by no means good for their progression of their business, their channel, whatever they want to call it. And yet they'll do it anyway because they want to do it, and it might even set them back going forward. So it's all about making decisions intelligently, and you know, it doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes that doesn't line up with what you personally want. Alright, so it took me a while to choose a last question here, because there's a few different ones here, and I even answered them kind of off camera in the chat, just because it's, I don't know, like they're decent questions, but I don't know that they're really worth putting in Mondays, because like they're not very exciting answers. So I'm going to take this one, then this is going to be the last one I take from the Twitch chat. So Mr. Happy, what do you think about Realm Reborn players, or Final Fantasy 14 players in general, that pause the game for like half a year, they didn't play, and they come back and they have all these things that they have to do again to play with the higher ups? So for me, I always look at, because that's every MMO in a nutshell. If you aren't the first, you're playing catch up. That's the mentality that people have. For me, it's not content that I have to get through to get to the recent stuff. It's things that I have to do. You know what I mean? I don't have to do them, but I have them to do. You know, I have this new dungeon I'll experience for the first time. I've been away for a while. I've got 6 dungeons I get to experience for the first time. I get to learn about these new dungeons for the first time. I get to, you know, see their bosses for the first time. The story that I didn't get to experience before, I have the story to experience. It comes down to whether or not it's exciting. And the only problem I personally see is that 2.1 to 2.3 is not a very exciting stretch of the game, whereas 3.1 to 3.5 has been generally, not only is it shorter to complete, but it's also been better to, it's been a better told story, so it's more interesting. I look at it as content I have to look forward to, not content that's standing in my way. And then if it's a little different if you're playing solo versus if you're playing with old friends. If you're playing with old friends, they say, no, fuck you, do this shit before I'll play with you. Then they're not your fucking friends, alright? They're scum. If you're playing solo, it's a little bit less exciting because you're just going to be waiting, you know, in the duty finder for whatever long, and you got to do that. And even if the queue times aren't that bad, you know, it's still time. You're just kind of sitting there twiddling your thumbs waiting for a time to play with other people. And you may not know what to do with the time that you're given while waiting in the duty finder, so you may just sit around doing nothing instead of doing other things that you could do. That'll come down to how much you really want to accomplish on the side. But to answer, the most direct answer I have is it's content I have to look forward to, not content that's standing in my way. As far as I'm concerned, I have more content than everyone else who's at max level, who's only doing max level content. They've got a very small pool of content to do every day. I have all this content that I still have to see, and then by the time I get to them, you know, my pool is going to be even smaller than it was before. Maybe a few new things open up, but it's content I have to look forward to. That is how I look at it. That's going to be the last question I take from the Twitch chat for Mondays with Mr. Happy this week. Thank you, everyone, for asking your questions. Be sure to ask your questions for next week. For the YouTube side of things, that's in the description of the video. If you're watching here live on Twitch, go to the YouTube video tomorrow, and there will be a link that you can ask your questions on the forums, which have first priority. Or just be here next Sunday and ask a good question in the Twitch chat, and you'll probably have just as equal luck. But anyway, videos at the bottom one more time. I don't know which videos I put down there, but I did have quite a few that I put out this last week, minus Thursday and Friday, so be sure to check those out as well. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys for the normal stream times, but don't forget, Subathon on Saturday. So if you got subs, new subs, resubs, save them, because that's when the fun begins. Thank you for coming by, and until next time, take care.